Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all my Exosister Yugioh deck profile for the February 2022 ban list. We got the new ban list and the new Yu-Gi-Oh set, the Grand Creators, around the same time, which is pretty awesome because we have to look forward to all the new cards from the latest set, along with all the cards that came off of the ban list. With this deck, it focuses on being an XYZ deck that you can summon out all the different Xyz monsters for the deck from the extra deck very easily based on what your opponent may do during their turn, and having all of the main deck Exosister monsters out on the field. I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of the name change. It was Exorcister, like Exorcist, and then changed, I would guess, to Exo. I guess they're maybe wearing armor in some of the depictions, but not really. Maybe, I don't know. But anyway, the deck is very, very cool. I'll be working more on it. It's a really, generic Xyz-based deck where if you have generic cards to get out rank 4s, as long as you're using some of the Exosisters, it can easily be utilized. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters first. For the Exosister monsters, they all run very, very well together, being light spellcasters. So with them, I'm running 3 Exosister Ellis. If you control an Exosister monster, you can special summon this card from your hand. If you control Exosister Stella, you gain 800 life points. And if your opponent moves a card out of their graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon from your extra deck 1 Exosister Xyz monster using this face-up card you control as material. It is treated as an Xyz summon. You can only use each effect of Ellis once per turn. So we have plenty of different Exosister Xyz monsters in the deck, 4 in total from the Grand Creator support. So being able to just utilize these monsters with what your opponent may do during their turn is very, very fun. A different take on XYZ summoning. So I run 3 Ellis along with 3 Exosister Stella. They all also have additional effects if you have another one of the sisters. I believe they go in a full circle on the field. During your main phase, you can special summon 1 Exosister monster from your hand, and if you control Ellis, which is the one we just spoke of, you can gain 800 life points. And if your opponent moves a card out of their graveyard, except during the damage step, you can special summon from your extra deck 1 Exosister Xyz monster using this face-up card you control, and you can only use each effect of Stella once per turn. So the special summon from the hand just gives you resources for your other Exosister monsters, gaining additional life, especially if it's one that clarifies if you control Stella, which is Ellis. So 3 of those cards as well to work with Ellis and Stella. 3 of the ultra rare, it's a little more difficult to get, and that is Exosister Sophia. If you control another Exosister monster, you can draw 1 card. Then if you control Exosister Elaine, gain 800 life points. And with this card, if it leaves any, you special summon 1 Xyz monster. So with it, if your opponent, except during the damage step, card leaves that graveyard, just like all the other ones. And having that Xyz play, very, very useful there. So if you have the Irene, you gain the additional life points with this card. Having draw power means all you have to do before your Xyz summon is have the other Exosister on the field, and you gain that draw. For the last of the Exosisters, I run 3 Exosister Irene. This one works just like the other play. If you have Sophia on the field, you gain 800 life points, and also you can place 1 Exosister card from your hand on the bottom of the deck and draw 1 card. So this works if you have additional ones in your hand that you really don't have a use of for that draw power. It doesn't help so much with the actual special summoning plays, but still useful for that draw into something more vital for your play, I would say. And then having the same play when it leaves the graveyard, except during the damage step, being able to special summon an XYZ monster from your extra deck using this card as material. So having 3 of them on the field and then going to your opponent's turn means if your opponent moves 1 card and you have those 3 different Exosisters, you can then overlay using all of them on the field, as long as they are separate, different Exosister monsters. For more additional Xyz plays, because the Exosister monsters clarify that they just need 2 level 4 monsters, but they do benefit from having the Exosister as material, I run the 3 Goblinberg. It's just my choice. Like I said, this deck is very generic with their Xyz plays, so it's just a preference on what you want to use for the additional monster. Goblinberg helps with the normal summon to special summon a level 4 lower monster from your hand, so having the option for the additional Exosister monsters, just being able to like summon, let's say, Stella off of Goblinberg, and if you have Ellis in your hand, that's another special summon right there. You can then go for the overlay with Goblinberg and one of the other Exosister monsters, leaving Ellis on the field to then use for another Xyz play if your opponent removes a card from their graveyard. And then lastly, for the monsters, I run 2 Summoner Monk. We do run a good number of spell cards, so being able to use them as a cost to special summon any of the other Exosister monsters just gives you, once again, 1 other monster on the field to use, depending on what that Exosister monster is and what you may have in your hand. If you didn't want to run Summoner Monk, you can always drop down the number of Goblinberg and take out the Summoner Monks and put in the Ash Blossom Hand Trap choice. That is it for the monsters. Moving on now to the spells. I only have one, but it is, I would say, a little more difficult of a card. So if you don't have Exosister Pax, you can always put in Exosister Carpe Diem. It's more of a continuous spell, but it is a rare for the easier access than Exosister Pax. It's a quick play spell. During the main phase, pay 800 life points to add one Exosister card from your deck to your hand except for Pax. Then if you added a monster by this effect, you can special summon it if the other Exosister monster mentioned on it is on your field or in your graveyard. So with the Exosisters working with one another, if you have that monster for the play, you can then at least search out that play and special summon it onto the field, giving you those two different monsters and the added benefits of the life point gain from both. And I also run 3 Exosister Armament, another quick play spell. You pay 800 life, then target one Exosister monster you control. Special summon one Exosister Xyz monster from your extra deck with a different name than the cards you control. By using that card as Xyz material, it's treated as an Xyz summon and transfer its materials to the summon monster. You can activate 1 Armament per turn. You can activate this card during your opponent's turn, unless your opponent controls a monster special summon from the graveyard. So it's kind of a restriction on the quick play spell, but not one that I would say very difficult. There is a chance that your opponent will have a monster from their graveyard, and then in that time frame before they use it, let's say for another extra deck resource, you activate this card. And having the option for that special summon just helps with that Xyz play for the additional summon and giving you additional material on, let's say, another Exosister Xyz monster you already had on the field when your opponent summoned that monster on the field. For more additional special summoning, I also run 3 Ties of the Brethren. The Exosister monsters are all light spellcasters, making an easy way to just special summon a good variety of different ones on the field. Having those 3 plays means you can leave these cards on the field or go for the additional overlay of 2 into 1 and having the one additional one on the field for when your opponent moves a card from their graveyard, and then being able to then use that card for the Xyz play. But just access to these cards and the fact that you don't really use life points for much else in the deck is a big help, and I would say a definite 3 of. And then lastly, for the spells, I run 2 Forbidden Chalice, just a choice. You can run Effect Veiler if you want in this spot, but just the monster effect negation on your opponent's cards while keeping this card set on the field, being another quick play spell you can use with your Exosister Armament. Very, very useful. And for the one-ofs, I run the 1 Call by the Grave, stopping your opponent's graveyard plays, the 1 Monster Reborn for getting back some of your own resources, and the 1 Instant Fusion. I do run the 1 level 4 target because sometimes you're just short that 1 level 4 monster to go into all the different Xyz monsters you run in the deck. And then that is it for the spells. When I move on to the traps, I run 3 Exosister Vadis. You pay 800 life points, choose 1 Exosister monster from your deck, then take 1 other Exosister monster from your deck that is mentioned in that monster's name, and special summon both that, but shuffle them into the deck during the end phase. Also, for the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except for Exosister monsters. So this is just a way to play around with your opponent's moves as well. If you set this card and they're not expecting having Exosister monsters on the field, you activate this, and then you're given the choice to then, if your opponent activates or moves a card from their graveyard, chaining this card to that response, getting out those monsters, and then activating their own effects once that other monster hits the field. For additional options, running 3 of the Exosister Vadis trap. I do run 3 Trap Trick, just a quicker way to gain access to that trap card to use, being able to activate it on the turn you set it, thanks to Trap Trick. And lastly, for the traps and the main deck, just 3 Infinite Impermanence. It's another target for Trap Trick if need be, and just another monster effect negation to stop your opponent's plays while continuing to use your Exosister monsters. And that is it for the main deck. We'll move on to the extra deck. Exosister Michaelis is definitely the best one. Sadly, I was only able to pull 1 from my boxes, but with it, 3 of this card is a definite. You need 2 level 4 monsters to make it. It cannot be destroyed by battle with monsters your opponent has special summon from the graveyard. You can only use each of the following effects of Michaelis once per turn. If you control the card that was Xyz summoned using this card by an Exosister monster as material, quick effect, you can target 1 card your opponent controls from the graveyard, banish it, and you can detach 1 from this card to add 1 Exosister spell or trap from your deck to your hand. So with this option, controlling that card that was Xyz summoned this turn by using an Xyz monster as material gives you a banish against your opponent, but the spell and trap card search can either give you access to Vadis or any of the other quick play spells you run for the Exosister deck. Additional numbers, but a little lower. Not as good as Michaelis, but still useful in the deck. I run 2 Exosister Caspatel. With it, it cannot be destroyed by battle, once again, from the graveyard monster special summoned by your opponent. And if this card is Xyz summoned using an Exosister monster as material, neither player can special summon monsters from the graveyard for the rest of the turn. It's a shutdown of the graveyard, so very, very scary there. Almost like the Abyss Dweller for Exosisters. And also being able to add a monster by detaching 1 from your deck to your hand for this card. I also run 2 Exosister Yugioh. This one has the option for the cannot be destroyed by battle, and being able to target one effect monster your opponent controls and negates effects until the end of this turn, and detaching 1 for the rest of this turn. All Xyz monsters gain 800 attack. The power boost, especially with some of the other ones like Michaelis, hitting 3300 attack, can be a good number to hit over a good majority of cards your opponent may have. With the last of the Exosister monsters being Exosister Yugioh. With this one, if it's Xyz summon using Exosister monster, neither player can activate card effects in the graveyard this turn, and you can detach 1 to target 1 monster your opponent controls and return it to the hand. The bouncing power of this card is scary, but once again, graveyard shutdown is what this deck is known for, so a useful one to go into. All the options available depending on what your opponent may try to do using their graveyard. As for the generic Xyz that I run the deck, I do run 1 Perform Mage Trapeze Magician with the Spellcaster option in the deck. I like running this card out of 1 Exciton Knight for the fact that you don't really have much field presence aside from your own monsters, so if need be, you can use this Xyz summon to destroy all other cards in the field. 1 Tornado Dragon, along with 1 Utopic Future and 1 Utopic Draco Future, since you can have 2 Xyz monsters on the field to use to overlay using these cards together. And then lastly, the 1 Carbonalo Warrior for the instant fusion target. As for some of the go-to plays to go into, I explained most of them during the video, but just relying on your opponent's graveyard plays is a big part of the deck as a whole, and then just deciding what Exosisters you want to use for that overlay. Like if you use Tie of the Brethren and get 3 on the field, using 2 for the Xyz summon of 1 of your monsters. Even if you have this 1 additional monster on the field, if your opponent goes into that graveyard play or summons a monster, you get that additional monster on the field. Depending on what resource you need to shut down your opponent after that monster is added, you have the different variety of all the different Exosister monsters at your disposal to use against your opponent. It just comes down to which one you want to use first on your turn when you activate that card effect and which one you want to summon out afterwards. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I'll be doing more from the Grand Creator set. I know we're very, very close to Battle of Chaos, so I want to focus on that set as well. But look forward to the Punk deck update and also the Adventure Token one. I look forward to working on both of them. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.